G'day City Skylines fans, it's the start of the week, so that means another feature highlight from Paradox Interactive. This week it's Climate and Seasons, which is feature highlight number 8. Looking forward to diving into this. It's a shorter one again this week, just because there's not as much to cover within this feature highlight. So we look at the different climates based on the map we choose to play on, the associated weather with that climate, be it a sunnier place or a much more cold and gloomy place. We learn about a day cycle being 1 month, 3 of those being a season, and 4 of those seasons being a year, and how climate affects our cities, and then they touch on natural disasters at the end. So let's dive in. So we learn straight away that climate is going to be a big deal. It's going to impact how our citizens move around the city, what they choose to do, and also things like traffic, and also the obvious things like, when there's no sun, your solar power stations aren't going to be able to make electricity, so you would then rely on what you've got stored. So they dive straight into climate and weather, and we learn that there's different types of climates that are unique to each map. They're based on latitude and longitude, which results in different lengths of day and night, sunlight and darkness, and also it controls the temperature range, the amount of cloud coverage and precipitation. So some maps that we play on are going to be really wet. If it's in the sort of North Pole or South Pole, that extreme, there's going to be lots of snow. The days are going to be very short. Conversely, if it's near the equator, the days will be relatively the same and the weather probably more stable. But carrying on a thread that we've seen through all of these dev diaries, they just take it a step further in City Skylines 2, where that gameplay really is impacted by the weather. So if the sun is out, the citizens' behavior changes. They prefer parks and outdoor activities. Once it starts to rain, less so. They prefer indoor leisure activities. So that's something a little bit more unique, going a step further, as I said, which is really interesting to see. The other obvious thing is around the city's energy consumption. So obviously, if the weather's hotter, then we're told that our city's energy consumption will start rising as our citizens turn on air conditioning to keep cool, and the opposite happens if the city starts to freeze. They'll be looking at heating to try and stay warm. Then we get more of an insight into the day-night cycle, which is totally different again. So one cycle through day and night equals 1 month, and each season lasts about 3 months. So then 4 seasons is what makes up a year, and that takes 12 in-game days. There are variations, so depending on the map's climate and the current seasons, nights can be longer during winter, and then obviously conversely during summer, the days can be longer depending on where that is. Quite a neat little addition to the game. I can't wait to see how that kind of plays as we get our hands on the game. With those seasons that bring snow, we get the welcome return of the snowplow as part of the road maintenance building, which I quite like. I know at the moment we have to play a totally different map, a Snowfall DLC map, in order to see those little snowplows going around. So now it looks like in City Skylines 2, they burn around your city as long as snow comes to your map. Nothing else is required. You plop down your road maintenance and away they go. So their responsibility, for those who haven't played a Snowfall DLC map, is obviously to reduce road accidents. And in City Skylines 1, they also keep the road speeds at the designated level, so the more snow you let build up, the traffic travels slower on the roads. So it'll be interesting to see if the same thing kind of happens in City Skylines 2. I would expect so. Then there's a little paragraph in this section on the blog that says, like in City Skylines, the game speed is adjustable with 3 speed options to choose from, as well as the option to pause the game at any time. When the game is playing at normal speed, the in-game day is a bit over an hour of a real lifetime, and at the highest speed, the in-game day is 1/3 of the normal speed in real life. So it's good just to get that clarification, just so we have it in our minds. Natural disasters are next, and they don't require a DLC this time. They're part of the base game, and unlike in the current game, they take it one step further again, which, as I said, seems to be the theme, which is great. So disasters occur randomly and really challenge the gameplay. It's good to see they can be switched on or off, because not everybody likes to play with them. It can get a little bit annoying when you're in the middle of building a masterpiece and the whole thing gets demolished. So it's nice to know that we have control over that. This time around, Not only could they potentially cause traffic accidents and lead to traffic jams, but they can also damage buildings and citizens can be directly hit by the disaster, which then burdens healthcare, death care and rescue services and causes further disruptions. So again, it's great to see that this kind of mirroring of real life as we've seen in the other dev diaries. Then we get a breakdown of what those disasters can be, mild like a forest fire for example, right up to heavy hitting like a tornado. With forest fires, similar to what we have now, we can prepare for those by placing fire watch towers, and again like the current game, fire trucks can only extinguish a fire when it reaches the road network, so we'd rely on firefighting helicopter depots to put forest fires out where the trucks don't have access. What's also interesting is the type of map we choose and the associated temperature and climate can have an influence over forest fires. So if we play on a map with more dry weather, there's a higher risk of those forest fires breaking out. Then we see the addition of hailstorms, which comes from cold weather. They say cold but not freezing. And then we have that possibility of a hailstorm occurring. Interestingly, hailstorms do cause physical damage to buildings, but they don't destroy them. But where it's really interesting and is an impact to how we're going to play this game is that the money to repair those buildings doesn't come from us as the mayor of the city. It actually comes from the residents, taking away from means that would usually go to building upkeep and leveling up. So they're using that money that would normally be dedicated to that kind of thing to actually repair their buildings. And then last on the list is the heavy hitting tornado, obviously the most extreme natural disaster that we can face in our city in City Skylines 2. This one obviously affects citizens, vehicles, buildings. It can cause serious widespread damage as it moves through the city, and buildings can be not only damaged but they can be totally destroyed. Citizens can get injured or die, and it also says a lot of traffic accidents tend to happen as well. It tells us that the best way to prepare for this type of extreme natural disaster is by placing small and large emergency shelters. So it's just telling us we have these two types of emergency shelter buildings that we have available to us this time around, and obviously the early disaster warning system can spot approaching natural disasters and let citizens, and probably us playing the game as well, know so we can try and do our best to either avoid it or minimize the damage. And that's it. As I said, short and sweet for Climate and Seasons. That's feature highlight number 8. Let me know in the comments below what you're excited to see from this or what you're not excited to see from this. How do you feel? How does this impact you? Is this going to change the way in which you build your cities or manage them moving forward? I'd be really interested to know. For me, I'm quite excited that there's been a tweak to how Climate and Seasons work in the game, and I'll be really interested to get my hands on the game in October and try it out. As always, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.